Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live. It is time for our series, America Back in Business, sponsored by TrackPhone. And today we are checking in on the health of restaurants. We've got a recent report by the National Restaurant Association that found only 7 states have seen restaurant employment return to pre-pandemic levels. And for much more on the recovery and where things stand in 2022, let's bring in Peabody. He is seated co-founder and executive chairman. We've also got Yahoo Finance's Brooke DePalma joining in on the conversation. Bo, it's always good to have you on the show. I will tell you, just anecdotally, being out at restaurants, more and more people feeling a little more comfortable not wearing those masks because a lot of the mandates have been lifted. To what extent has that provided a boost to restaurants?
It's definitely provided a boost. I think that we're still in this period where there are just habits that used to be there for when you would go out and how often you would go out that are not coming back as fast as we had all hoped. I think a lot of that has to do with return to work. And a lot of that has to do with just people being out of the habit of visiting restaurants. And so while, you see restaurants full sort of here and there, the overall numbers are still in recovery mode.
And Bo, earlier this year, Seated debuted a free tool for restaurants. It's called the Restaurant Occupancy Calculator. It allows restaurants to visualize their occupancy rate. Break down for us how exactly this tool works, what trends they're noticing, and what plans they're putting in place to fill those seats.
I am on a personal mission to get every restaurant owner and operator to focus on their occupancy rates. This is the most important thing for any restaurant. I've owned restaurants for 25 years. It's all that I focus my team on, is how many seats do we have and how many of them are we filling by day part. What the Seated Restaurant Occupancy Calculator allows you to do is to enter a few pieces of data based on your day of the week, time of day, and it will tell you how many of your seats you're actually filling. And everyone you're not filling is a huge profit opportunity, right? Because your fixed costs are your fixed costs. And so every seat that you fill that would have otherwise gone empty adds right to your bottom line.
Hey, Bo, it's Brian Chung here. What's been so interesting about kind of metrics for restaurants is that the occupancy potential is very different because some restaurants, especially in New York City, might actually have more capacity now because of the ability to put some tables outside. So these types of metrics are changing seemingly by the season. And we know that it's also constrained by the amount of workers that they have available. New York City still not back to pre-pandemic levels of employment in the industry. So how do you factor in those kind of unique elements to restaurant operations into the metrics that you're looking at?
In some ways in New York City, and I think even in some other cities like that we see like Boston, we're in a golden era. We have a lot of restaurants have been able to increase their capacity with outdoor seating without increasing their rent. Consumers have gotten used to a little bit more self-service. So you actually need fewer people to serve the food. And so, your fixed costs have actually, as a percentage, have gone down. And so it's never been more important than to figure out how can I, when things are busy, we've seen Sunday brunch, by the way, is a much busier time than it used to be. How can I fill as many seats as I possibly can fill in those times with my extra capacity that I'm not paying rent on?
Bo, I want to take a bit of a larger picture here. Across the nation, restaurants are continuing to try to come back. And most recently, New York State Congressman Tom Reed, among 150 other congressional members, wrote a letter to Speaker Pelosi and Leader McCarthy urging them to replenish the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. How important would this influx of capital be in the comeback of the restaurant industry?
Well, I'm of two minds on this. Obviously, more money for the industry is great, but taking advantage of that money is a complicated thing that many operators just aren't equipped to do from a finance, accounting, administrative perspective. So I think if they're going to do it, they need to make it easier for the small operators to access that capital, either by providing some assistance in terms of filling out the forms and partnering with the banks in order to make it happen, or just making it easier to do if they need to do it themselves. So I'm supportive, but I'd like to see it go to operators that are, have a little bit less infrastructure. Most of the ones with a lot of infrastructure, they were able to take advantage of the first round.
All right, Bo Peabody, seated co-founder and executive chairman alongside Yahoo Finance's Brooke DePalma. Thanks so much for bringing us that conversation.